John Burke is the clerk to the local review. Mark Brand is the independent planning advisor to the local review body. He has no involvement in the processing of any planning applications which are subject of the review. And Jerry Mallon is the legal advisor and is responsible for preparing the local review body's decision notice and to provide advice as necessary. Are there any reports? Apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from Councillors Cunningham, Lundy, Morrison and Provost Montague, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No. So, business today. The local review body has been asked to consider two items of business today. The first details of the first case are as follows. Notice of review 2024/03, installation of driveway, retaining wall, fencing and access steps at 10 Cromarty Gardens, Clarkston, reference number 2023/0670/TP. Are we happy with sufficient information to determine the review? Okay. I'll pass you on to Mark now if you would like to say a few words about it, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will summarise the case for and against, starting with information that the application is in Ward 4, Clarkston, Neverley and Williamwood. There were 4 objections to this application. The grounds for objection given were not all residents in the street were neighbour notified and not given enough time to consider the proposal. Parking, the impact on the street when and if the pavement parking law should come into operation. There was not enough information provided on car access to the driveway, e.g. swept path analysis. Wheelie bins would be stored on the path and the drawings were inaccurate. Those were the reasons stated in objections. I will now summarise the assessment made by the planning case officer. The proposal will remove a front garden and introduce an extensive hard standing. The driveway would be 6 metres wide and 5.3 metres deep, with the access steps to the left-hand side. The rear retaining wall would average approximately 2 metres in height, with a 1 metre fence on top. All retaining walls would be finished with white dash render to match the house. The applicant's submission showed the driveways installed nearby as an example of other driveways of this nature, but in the planning officer's assessment they were considered to be not directly comparable because they occur at houses in less elevated positions, involve less excavation of garden land, or the driveways occur to the side of a house without substantial reduction of garden ground. The planning body members should note that the Strategic Transport Service have not objected to this proposal. The planning officer gives the following reason for refusal. The proposal is contrary to policies 14 and 16 of the National Planning Framework and policies D1 and D1.1 of the adopted East Renfrewshire Local Development Plan, because it would have a detrimental impact on the existing landscape and create an adverse physical impact by introducing intrusive and incongruous hard standing, high retaining walls and a high boundary fence to the detriment of the visual amenity of the surrounding area. I will now summarise the statement of appeal by the appellant. The appellant provides information to demonstrate why they believe the proposal satisfies the policy requirements of MPF 4 and the 6 qualities of a successful place. The proposal will improve physical and mental health because the footway will be clear of parked cars and provide unobstructed access for pedestrians. Accessibility is improved for vehicular and pedestrian movement, especially for vulnerable pedestrians, bin lorries and emergency vehicles. The proposal is sustainable and flexible, being designed to a high standard with durable materials. The design is in keeping with the surroundings, using pebble dash retaining walls, paved hard surfaces and fencing. Currently, the frontage of a property consists of steps, bricks, and the neighbouring property frontages and Cromarty Gardens are formed with masonry, hard standing and timber handrails. The applicant provided photographs showing other front garden parking bays in the Stampland area which in their opinion are comparable to this proposal. The appellant noted that the Transport Service did not object to this design. In the event of this review being upheld, the following conditions should be attached to any planning permission thus granted. The development hereby approved must be begun not later than the expiration of 3 years beginning with the date on which permission is granted, or as may be deemed to be granted. The reason, to comply with the provisions of Section 58 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997. And secondly, before work commences on the development hereby approved, a scheme of soft landscaping shall be submitted for the written approval of a planning authority and thereafter implemented on site within 6 months of date of approval, unless otherwise agreed by the planning authority. And the reason for this condition is to mitigate the visual impact caused by the replacement of the garden with hard standing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brand. I'd like to open up to the members for any comment. Mr. Ireland.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. It was really helpful actually to go out on site. These site visits are always very helpful. I just wanted to ask, there was a comment made, and I perhaps didn't pick up on it when I was reading the report of handling. You mentioned at the start that the drawings, there was mention made from the objectors that the drawings were inaccurate. Do you know which drawings they were referring to? Is that the drawings of the showing the actual the 2-car parking spaces, or was it the swept path analysis? I'm asking because when we were there, I find it quite difficult to envisage that coming out, and I wondered if the swept path analysis drawings that I've seen were the ones that were submitted to roads. Where did they come from, the applicant direct?
The drawings which were submitted as part of the application would have been the drawings which the road service used to assess the application. As noted previously in my summary, the roads service did not have an objection to this application.
And is that the drawings that were referred to in the objections that they thought were inaccurate?
I believe the objection stated there was an issue with the scale of the drawing. Having read the road services response to the application, scale was not mentioned as an issue in their analysis of the drawings provided.
Okay. I just have another question, Chair, if that's okay. When I was looking back through the drawings, well, first of all, it did strike me that the swept path analysis was extraordinarily tight. But I note that that is not the reason that's given by the planners. They indeed say that it's intrusive and incongruous. I do find myself in agreement with that. But I did have a question. When I was looking at the plans, it was showing that the driveway were built, and the plans submitted by the applicant, it showed cars parked up really quite tight to where those driveways start. Now, I have had people contact me from Stampland area about people that have had driveways put in, but the white lines that are thereafter installed go quite far beyond the driveway on each side. Would that be the case here? I know that might be outside more if we had roads here, but it was just because I don't think that's where those. I do not think that where it's shown, that's where the cars would be parking. I think the white lines would go out further. But I just wanted a wee bit, if there was any way to clarify that.
I'm afraid, Councillor, I wouldn't be able to clarify that. I could only refer you back to the Roads Services response, which in this case was no objection to the scheme.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Edlin.
I don't. When I saw the site and looked at the plans, I think there's plenty of space for cars to turn when they reverse or move into the proposed parking bays. Quite honestly, I'm surprised at the decision of the official in this case, because when I saw it, I think the proposed plans enhance the way that street's going to look from what it looks like now, with that rocky stones and stuff that are gravel, whatever's there at the moment. So I don't understand the objections to this proposal for many reasons. And I had a look around the area, and there's other similar parking bays in Stamford area. So I don't really understand why there should be an objection to this case.
Thank you, Councillor. My opinion of it is, I'm not sure about getting your line about white lines, because I don't think they put white lines on it that tight as a road up that size.
It's the... Apologies, Chair. It's to mark the area either side of a drop curb where you can and cannot park. I've had people contact me before where neighbours have put in a drop curb, but the white line that's subsequently been added goes beyond the drop curb on both sides. But I've been told by Roads that's perfectly reasonable, that's normal. But I have had neighbours contact me who cannot park, have found and are getting in trouble if they go too close up or over the white line. But the white line is about this much on either side of the. So that's why I was asking.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. There was a lot of talk about kind of parking and taking away 2 parking spaces, but kind of my opinion of it is they would take actually 2 off the road, and looking at the site, there would be plenty of room to either drive in or reverse in or out, whatever way you wanted to do it. And with regards to the height of the wall at the back, if you look up at the top houses there are far, far higher walls up there because the houses sit higher up. They don't have any parking bays right enough, but the walls, there's 2 sets of steps up to them, and the wall sits a lot higher up. So I would be inclined to overturn this one, in my opinion. I would put a motion forward to overturn it if anybody would second it. Seconded by Councillor and Councillor Ireland. So
No, I'm moving moving otherwise.
good.
Councillor Ireland would obviously need a seconder. I presume that there's no seconder for Councillor Ireland, given that.
Okay. Quickly just ask Councillor Ireland, obviously as you've raised a motion with no seconder, would you like to have your dissent recorded in this instance?
I would, yes. I'm in agreement with the planners. Thanks.
So the decision of the planning committee is to overturn the decision by the planning officers and grant permission for that.
Can I ask, Chair, Mr Brand indicated that in the event that planning consent was granted, that there were suggested conditions to be applied. Can I ask the members of the body whether they would wish those conditions to be applied?
I think we would, yes. Okay, thanks very much. Moving on to the next one. This is side utility 1-storey extension, formation of pitched roof over existing garage, roof alterations to form front dormer and red gable as part of a loft conversion, existing roof to be re-roofed at 29 Stewart Drive, Clarkson. Reference number 2023/0354/TP. Are we happy with sufficient information to determine the review? Good stuff. Could I pass this over to Mark then to outline the proposal?
Thank you, Chair. The application is in Ward 4, Claxton, Neverley and Williamwood. There were 4 objections to this application. The grounds for objections were overlooking, that the proposal is out of character with the area and overly dominant, that it would constitute overdevelopment of the site, and that it would produce overshadowing of neighbouring properties. I'll now summarise the decision of the planning case officer. The cumulative impact of the existing extensions and the proposed extensions and alterations, including the front dormer window, do not detract from the character or design of the existing dwelling and are in keeping with the visual character of the area. The design of our proposals under The design of a proposal and their orientation are not considered to create significant additional overshadowing or loss of daylight to neighbouring properties, nor does the development represent overdevelopment of the site. To conclude, there is no issue with the scale or proportions of the proposal. The reason for the refusal lies with the proposed large rear-facing first-floor window. Given the relatively shallow depth of the applicant's rear garden and that of the gardens adjoining to the rear, the window has potential to create an overlooking issue. The applicant's agent has provided information showing the distance between the proposed window to neighbouring windows varying between 15.7 metres and 20 metres. 20 metres would be an acceptable distance, the lesser unacceptable. There is a shared hedge which forms the boundary between the applicant's property and houses at 20, 22 and 24 Sunnyside Drive. The applicant's hedge is kept at approximately 2.2 metres height, while the hedge at 20 and 22 Sunnyside Drive grows to 2.8 metres high in parts. The application therefore relies on the concept of borrowed amenity to protect the privacy of neighbouring properties. It places the onus on the owner of the adjacent property to maintain the boundary hedge at a height of around 3 metres to protect their privacy. The applicant did submit a proposal to erect a trellis to mitigate overlooking, but subsequently withdrew this aspect. The applicant has not demonstrated suitable mitigation or that the hedge provides sufficient screening to protect privacy. Therefore, the reasons for refusal are: 1. The proposal is contrary to Policy 16 of the National Planning Framework 4, as without adequate means of control, the proposed rear-facing first-floor window would give rise to a significant additional degree of overlooking to the detriment of the residential amenity of the property to the rear. And secondly, the proposal is contrary to Policies D1 and D1.1 of the adopted Local Development Plan, as without adequate means of control, the proposed rear-facing first-floor window would give rise to a significant additional degree of overlooking to the detriment of the residential amenity to the property to the rear. I'll now summarise the statement of appeal. The appeal lists 16 examples of approved gable end extensions in the vicinity which have been granted planning consent. This includes 2 examples where the distance from the consented gable end to the rear garden boundary is less than the distance of the current application. The applicant provides a photograph from the approximate location of the proposed window and states that the distance from the proposed glazing to the rear wall of 22 Sunnyside is 16 metres with a hedge in between. The applicant concludes that the proposal does not increase the footprint of the building towards the rear boundary and notes that the extension at number 22 Sunnyside Drive is closer to the boundary than that of the proposed development. In the event of this review being upheld, the following conditions should be attached to any planning permission thus granted. The development hereby approved must be begun not later than the expiration of 3 years beginning with the date on which permission is granted, or, as the case may be, deemed to be granted. For reason to comply with the provisions of Section 58 of the Town and Country Planning Act of Scotland. And secondly, the hedge to the rear of number 29 Stewart Drive, which forms the boundary with numbers 20, 22 and 24 Sunnyside Avenue, is to be maintained by the owners of 29 Stewart Drive at a height of no less than 3 metres and cannot be felled or thinned without the written approval of the Planning Authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Brand. I'll open it up to members for any comment. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm in agreement with the planners on this one, and I would want to move that we do uphold the decision that has been made. I noted that when I was reading through the objections to this, that there were several people saying that they don't object to people improving their home or doing works on it, but it was just that this was really impinging on their privacy, and that was again and again it was about the privacy. I worry a lot about overlooking when it comes up before us, and it does look, from what the objections are saying and what the report handling is saying, that the reason this is the one reason it's being refused by the planners or recommended is the overlooking. So I wanted to say I'm very much in agreement, and I would want to uphold. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Councillor Edlin.
In this particular case, the objections come from the neighbours over the privacy issue. If they hadn't raised the issue, it's one thing, but they've raised it. And we also have a breach of the 20-metre rule, which I gather is fundamental. And although the owner of the home does state that is breached elsewhere in the area, but I'm not sure how accurate that is anyway. I noted that he was going to erect a trellis for privacy, which should have solved the problem of privacy. He's now withdrawn that. And because he's withdrawn that, the privacy issue still lies there. I don't think you can put in a notice that he must maintain a 3-metre hedge when it's not there now. It's almost impossible to enforce. So, therefore, unless he's prepared to go back with a trellis, I don't see how we can approve this. So, I agree that we should uphold the decision of the planner, and because of that. That's my logic anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Edlin. I think I would tend to agree with everything that's been said here. Again, there was a proposal to erect, as you say, Councillor Edlin, a section of trellis which has been withdrawn, and had the applicant's side of the hedge been higher, a condition could have been attached. But what it's saying in page 137, third paragraph, however, the hedge under the applicant's direct control is currently of insufficient height to prevent overlooking, and it is not possible to attach a condition controlling the height of that part of the hedge. Then we can't put any conditions in, so I would support the planner's decision and reject the proposals. Okay.
On that basis, the local review body refuses the appeal and upholds the LR planning decision. And that concludes the business of the LRB for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for your attendance. Have a good day. Bye bye.